Levi light.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I hadn't been doing any more. I wasn't doing any talks on the Tribe of Levi because I felt led of the Holy Spirit to do those two videos on Russia and the prophecy, and also what does the Word of God have to say about government laws and regulations and how we navigate that as believers. I think these are two very important topics. I think we should have a spirit of being united in one purpose and understanding how important it is to be that way as believers, and to show the world that we have a good testimony and that we are show the love of Christ, and that we're the example to the world to follow. And so I think that's important there. So I'm going to leave those videos there, and we're going to talk about the Tribe of Levi. This is a very important tribe, as we can see, because this is the tribe, the descendants of Aaron and Moses, that were given the law of God, and so that we would know, what sin and what God accepts and not, and so the priesthood was of the tribe of Levi. And they did not own any land, and they were given certain cities to live in. So it said that they were going to be scattered, as we said in Genesis 49, 5-7, and that it said they were fierce, but they were fierce in a different way. Simeon was fierce in the way of like a soldiering kind of thing, but not Levi. Levi was more fanatical. So he would tend to be more fanatical and really into the law. And we could see that many of the prophets of Israel were of the line of Levi, including Moses and, Ezekiel and some of these other prophets that were very instrumental in the law, like the judge Samuel. These are some very important people. And of course, let's not forget Jesus, his mother, Mary, and his cousin John were of Levi. They were Levites. And Jesus got his kingly line as the King of Kings from his father Joseph. They were of the tribe of Judah. That's why they went to Bethlehem, because Bethlehem is the city of David's birth or nativity. That's why they went there. So that clearly shows that Jesus' father was of that line, of the kingly line of David. And then we look at, very interesting now, that it makes it very clear in the Bible. We're going to go to some of these verses quickly, but that Levi, his mother was a Levite. Mary and his cousin John were Levites, and his father, John's father, was a Levite as well. He was a Levitical priest. So we have Jesus as a high priest, and so he actually had the right to be a high priest and teach in the synagogues because he was Levite as well. So he was a king. He could it was in line of the kings through his father, and he was also a line of high priest through his mother. So I think that's very, very interesting how the Yeshua can be the high priest and the King of Kings at the same time, and he has right to both, and that's amazing. So I think that's really important to say, and that's what it means. Levi means to join and bring together, and so Yeshua is prophesied as the Messiah. The Messiah would bring all the tribes together. And that was what Levi was prophesied in another prophecy, that he would bring the other tribes together and cause them to follow the laws of God. That's the main thing about Levi, because Levi has this fanatical nature, very strong believing, and expecting the other people of Israel to follow suit. I think that's important aspect of the characteristics of Levites.
Yes, I'd like to interject there because we read about how Levi responded. Levi joined Simeon and revenged and slaughtered the Shechemites, but his reasoning was different. He said, "They should not treat my sister as a harlot." It was righteous indignation,
Correct,
that caused Levi to be involved in that slaughter. Nothing else. So it talks about Levi's fanatical nature, his spiritual nature. He responded out of righteous indignation. It is not the same as Simeon was. Simeon was a warrior and a fighter.
And he did it because of vengeance. That's the important point. That was a good point.
And that is why they were scattered, and they're all the tribes of Levi can be found with all the other tribes, because they always wanted somebody of the Levitical priesthood to represent them wherever they went, no matter where land they went and where they migrated. So this was true, and Levites would always bring people to come together to worship God and to make offerings for their sins. So this is how they fulfill their prophecy, both being scattered and bringing people together. So I just want to make that point.
Okay, so we're going to go to Genesis 29. This is when Levi was born, and we'll see now that Levi means to join, to be joined, to bring together. Let's go there. Right?
Yes.
Genesis 29, 34, I believe.
Yep. And she conceived again and bare a son and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. So that's what I wanted to do and say. And we already talked about Genesis 49, verses 5 to 7, when we were talking about Simeon, but the difference between the two. So we'll go over that. We'll skip that. And if you go to Numbers 2, it says that, the tribe of Levi actually, it had a good amount of people in it. But they were never numbered.
Correct. And but there was 3, it makes 3 breakups: the Merarites, Gershonites, and the children of Moses and Aaron, or the descendants of Moses and Aaron. And the descendants of Moses and Aaron were specifically the high priests, and the other ones did other services in the temple. The Merarites and the Gershonites, they did other jobs. And the Kohathites, they did different jobs. And the Kohathites, or the Kohanim, is where those ones were the ones who had an affinity with Judah. And that's why you have Cohen, the name Cohen, Kun, Khan, those names. Those clearly show, or the last name Levi, that those are people of the tribe of Levi. And that's how you can find out by their names. And their tribal names gives you an idea who's from the tribe of Levi, because the sign of Levi is the ephod, and there's no heraldry for them in that aspect. So that's why it's very difficult to track the Levites. So we have to know that they're scattered amongst all the tribes, and they had an affinity with Judah. So half of the Levites, for sure, maybe up to 60%, stuck with Judah. So they were wherever you found the Jews, the nations of the Jews, and where they went, a huge portion of the Levites went with them. That's an important point to make. And now I'm going to explain to you a little bit more about where they were, where they end up, where the Levites end up. And one of the other important aspects to think is that they made weapons. Levites lived where places where there was mineral resources, where it talks about having weapons of cruelty. And so that would mean you'd have to have metals around. And there also had a Jewish person or rabbi said that the Levites were also known, because they lived in different cities, that they sort of did some policing around, and they wanted to make sure the law was upheld. And that was another important point. So a lot of the people who are Levites are actually authorities in the land. And so wherever they were authorities and policing and this thing. So Levi is known for that. People from the tribe of Levi are known for upholding laws and policing and that kind of thing. So that's a good point to make as well. So, okay, so where do we have places with mineral resources where they make weapons, and places where people or groups of people that are very into law? So you'll find them in Israel, of course. The Israel was founded in 1940s. Many of the Levites went immediately there. So you can find a huge portion of the Levites are there. But a good portion of them are in Wales and Ireland. And another aspect of Levi that I want to say, also with Judah as well, they were musicians. And so Levitical people and Jews were known to be talented musicians. And so the Welsh and Irish are known for that. They're known for being good musicians, like to this day. And Wales and Ireland, especially Wales, had huge mineral resources. And there's another place where a huge portion of the Levites were found was Eastern Europe, like in Poland and some of these other Eastern European countries. That's where a lot of the Levites ended up. So those kind of nations are where, those nations in Eastern Europe is where a lot of the Levites ended up. That's an important
I'd
point.
just like to make a point too. Moses and Aaron were from the line of Kohath. And the really interesting part that I'd like to remind people, that Aaron was a master goldsmith. And that was one of his trades. So he worked with metals and he had mastery because he forged the golden calves in the wilderness. So it speaks about their musical ability, but also their ability to work with metals and things like that.
That's
So it's been going on for a very long time.
So now I'm going to explain some other ones. The actual name of Wales gives kind of a reference in some ways to, very strong reference to the tribe of Levi, because there's also a group called the Wallonians in Sweden, and they're very interesting group of people, and they were extremely good at smithing with metals, and also there was, I'll give you an example, some names like James Owens. They were very artistic and musical. And then we have the other ones, like the Druids. The Druids were Levitical priests, fallen Levitical priesthood, because they did things very similar to what the Levitical priests did. And so, again, we found a lot of Druids in Wales and Ireland and the British Isles. So that's where a lot of the Levites ended up. And some of them were in the north, like when you look at the rune stones in Scandinavia. So that you could see there was Levitical, presence in the north, and then we have ones, I believe that Belgium is, there had some tribal influence there, and also Transylvania or Dacia was the name, Dacia, which is now modern day it's a part of modern day Romania. So again, we're talking about Eastern Europe here. So that's where the tribe of Levi was found. And here's another interesting thing. Remember I said that they followed around with the tribe of Judah wherever they went? Well, there's actually Levitical tribes in Africa because the Ethiopians had a Jewish kingdom in Ethiopia. In that Jewish kingdom, there was a tribe known in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, which is just south of Ethiopia. They found that they had genetic markers of the Kohanim, which means they're descendants of Levites, and they found that it actually, when did this genes get introduced in the population? They said at the time of Moses, and I think that's absolutely amazing. So there was people from the tribe of Levi in Africa as well, and there's also there was ones that made it as far east as Afghanistan and regions of northern India. So the Levites went quite far, and they were spread all over, just like the prophecy said.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 33, and it talks about their duty, their law, to teach the law and to teach the people the laws of God. And this is the prophecy of Moses gave to the tribe of Levi, which he was a member of. And before I do that, I'm going to talk about some names or famous people in or part of the tribe of Levi. And I'm going to talk about some people, some of the names of honorable mention. John the Baptist, the greatest prophet. Ezra, who was one of the greatest teachers of law, brought the law back to the people in captivity. After Babylonian captivity, we have Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel. We have another prophet, Malachi. And the judge Samuel was also from the tribe of Levi. And I'm trying to think if I'm missing it. Of course, Mary and Elizabeth. Remember the
Zechariah.
tribe? And also Zechariah, John's father, was from the tribe of Levi. So, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. And of course, actually, Jeremiah was also, he was a son of a priest. So there you go. So we have some of the greatest prophets there ever was that were from the tribe of Levi. So it wasn't just Judah and where the tribe of Judah, which produced great prophets and leaders. So I think it shows that Levites were good leaders as well, like Moses and Aaron and Ezra and Samuel. They were great leaders. So I believe that shows another aspect of the tribe of Levi. They were good leaders, but they tended to be lawful and make sure that everyone was following the rules. So we'll continue and we'll go to Deuteronomy 33 now. Can you read, please?
I don't know what verse.
Oh, sorry. 8 to 11. Verses 8 to 11.
And of Levi he said, let thy Thummim and Urim be with the Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massah, and whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, who said unto his father and his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren, knew his own children, for they have observed thy word and kept thy covenant. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments, and Israel thy law, and they shall put incense before thee, and whole burnt sacrifice upon the altar. So there it talks about that they would be teaching the law, and they'd all be doing all the sacrifices with the altar. And at this time, it was necessary because they had to do the service, and there had to be offerings for sins. They needed to be atoned for. So that's why the Levite priesthood had to operate as it did in that time.
Yeah, that's a good explanation of it. I'm going to go to Jeremiah 33, 19, I believe. Okay, yes. 18. Verse 17 says that David would always have a person on the throne of his line. But verse 18 talks, and neither shall the priests of Levites want a man before one to offer burnt offerings, and to kindle meat offerings, and to do sacrifice continually. So, that came from Jeremiah, which was of that line. So that was their job to do that. And until Yeshua, the high priest, had established a new covenant, that was what they were called to do. That's what they did. And so that's important to know. And I'm not going to talk about the ephod in this video, but the ephod had all 12 stones, and the specific stones are for each tribe. And that's in Exodus. And I'm not going to go there right now because I want to make another point about Jesus, Jesus, about how he was of the line of Levi through his mother. So we're going to go there. Luke 1, verse 5. Just that verse. Luke 1, verse 5. And so it makes it is clear. And there's no doubt about it.
Yes. Now, I want to read, yes, it is. There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless.
And so it says that Mary was the cousin of Elizabeth. And because Mary was a cousin of Elizabeth, it clearly shows, and then without a doubt, that Mary was of the tribe of Levi, because Elizabeth was her cousin. So we know for sure that this is the case. John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin, and John the Baptist was a Levite. And so this is clear, and this is why it's really relevant, because Jesus is the high priest. And That's why I wanted to make that point. And this is why through Jesus, the Levite would bring and join all the tribes together. The stick, the
Yes,
two sticks.
that's exactly how this prophecy is fulfilled. All these prophecies of the two sticks are fulfilled through Christ and none other.
So, so I think that's a good thing. We'll leave it there, and I believe that should
Yes.
explain
So
the tribe
the
of
Levitical
Levi.
priesthood was in strength for the entire Old Covenant, and the laws, all the laws, were in strength in the Old Covenant. Tithing was for the Levites and all those other laws. All the temple laws and the food laws, they were perfectly 100% in strength. They were all observed. As long as, even when Christ was alive, he observed them all. But this order, it had changed with Christ. That's the New Testament, which is through Christ's blood, became the high priest forever. This is the change that happened.
And so, God bless you all. I hope this is a blessing to understand what Levi did. And not the pinnacle of what Levi did was it said, it talks about in Deuteronomy chapter 18 about a prophet greater than Moses. And so he was of the kin of Moses. And so and that's an important point here. So God bless and take care.